They thought he was just another lonely old man, a quiet widower with a cane and fading memories. But when the HOA president punched him over a garbage bin fine, she had no idea who she was messing with. Behind the silence was a retired federal judge, and he was about to turn her perfect little community upside down. This isn't just a story about revenge, it's about justice, power, and the moment a tyrant finally met her match. Emory Collins had spent decades handing down verdicts in the marble halls of federal courtrooms. But nothing prepared him for the trial he would face in the place meant to be his final refuge. After retiring from the bench, he moved to Maple Glen, a pristine community nestled among Oregon's fir trees, where streets were clean, neighbors waved politely, and every mailbox was the same shade of beige. It was Patricia's dream, not his, but he followed her there without question. That was before the cancer took her. After her death, the house turned into a mausoleum of silence. Emory lived in shadows of memory, sipping weak coffee, rereading old rulings, listening to classical vinyls she had loved. He was not trying to find peace. He was trying to survive the absence. One morning, half lost in thought, he forgot to bring the garbage bins in. By the time he realized it, they had been at the curb for 10 hours past the HOA's deadline. He rolled them back and thought nothing more of it. 2 days later, a sealed envelope arrived. The letter inside was rigid in tone and outrageous in content, a $500 fine for prolonged unsightly waste receptacle exposure. Emory laughed out loud. He thought it was a prank, but the signature at the bottom was no joke. Nancy Whitmore, HOA president. Nancy had ruled Maple Glen like a petty monarch. She didn't just enforce the rules, she embodied them. Every plant trimmed to code. Every porch light within her approved wattage. She weaponized bylaws with religious fervor and made neighbors cower with one glance. And now, she'd set her sights on Emory. He walked to the HOA office the next morning, letter in hand, expecting a civil conversation. Instead, he found Nancy behind a sterile desk, flipping through papers with the calm of a predator. "This is ridiculous," he said, placing the notice in front of her. "Rules are rules," she replied without looking up. "I spent 30 years defining what rules actually mean," he said. "And this isn't law. This is intimidation." Nancy tilted her head. "Respect for the community, Mr. Collins, is not optional." "I'm not paying it." She didn't blink. "Then, prepare for the consequences." Emory walked away, not out of fear, but resolve. He had seen what unchecked power could do in courtrooms, but to see it growing in the soil of his own front yard that hit different. He thought she'd let it go. She didn't. Over the next few weeks, the harassment escalated. Daily violation letters, board members with clipboards circling his property, fines for weeds, chipped paint, even an old wind chime Patricia had hung before her final chemotherapy. It became clear this wasn't about a bin. It was about power, control, and the fact that Emory didn't kneel. Then came the morning everything broke. He stormed back into the HOA office, cane in hand. He didn't need it physically, but it grounded him, gave him a rhythm, a presence. Nancy was waiting, smug as ever. "I won't be bullied," he said, voice flat. "You're a liability, Mr. Collins. You don't belong here." He leaned forward. "You want a war, then stop hiding behind your bylaws and step into the light." Something snapped in her. She lunged forward and, in a moment that would echo through every porch and patio in Maple Glen, punched him across the jaw. The cane slipped. His head struck the counter on the way down. Blood pooled on the sterile white tile. She stood over him, chest heaving. "Now you'll follow the rules," she said, turning away as if what just happened was protocol. But Emory Collins was not a man without recourse. In the hospital, as nurses patched the split in his scalp. His mind was not on pain, but on justice. He filed assault charges. Then, using old contacts from his time on the bench, he pushed further: civil fraud, financial misconduct. He requested an independent audit of the HOA's operations. What he suspected turned out to be the tip of something rotten. Investigators discovered a network of deceit: inflated fines, falsified invoices, embezzled funds funneled into personal vacations, private dinners, and a remodel of Nancy's lakeside cabin. Some violations had been fabricated entirely to target residents who spoke up. Others, like Emory's, were meant to humiliate. Her cousin's landscaping company had received exclusive contracts at inflated rates. And still, the sidewalks crumbled and the tennis courts rusted. Months passed. Depositions, subpoenas, deposits examined. Witnesses came forward, their silence broken by the courage of the man they once assumed was just another old widower. The courtroom, when the trial began, was overflowing. Nancy arrived in a pale blue suit, flanked by a high-priced attorney who smirked like he already had the verdict in his pocket. She pleaded not guilty, claimed Emory had threatened her first, that he had lunged at her, that she acted in fear. Then the security footage was played. It was short, grainy, undeniable. The court fell into stunned silence. The verdict came fast: guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 6 months in county jail and barred for life from serving on any HOA board in the state, ordered to pay restitution to every resident she had financially harmed. Her attorney didn't even file an appeal on the day of sentencing. As Nancy was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, she passed Emory without a word. Her eyes were hollow, stripped of the superiority that once lit them like fire. Outside, reporters waited. "Judge Collins," one called out. "How do you feel about what just happened?" He paused, looking out at the cold sky. "Justice isn't loud," he said. "It doesn't yell. It doesn't punch back. It just waits. And when it arrives, it speaks so clearly that no one dares to argue." The HOA was dissolved within a year. A new committee was elected. Emory never ran for anything, but he was the first person they consulted for reform. He didn't want power. He wanted peace. But he also wanted his wife's wind chime back on the porch, and he hung it there the very next day. It rang softly that afternoon as a breeze passed through Maple Glen. Some neighbors stopped, smiled, nodded at the old man in the rocking chair with the cane resting nearby. And for the first time in a long while, Emory Collins smiled back.